Welcome to Impact Innovators with Felicia Ford, where we dive into the strategies that empower changemaker brands to leave a lasting legacy. Think of this podcast as your audio playbook for meaningful action. What's possible when thought leaders, disruptors, and pioneers align to share their journeys? I'm Felicia Ford, your host, bringing together the brightest minds and the most groundbreaking ideas to help you drive change, navigate through the sticky stuff, and elevate your brand. Whether you're tackling funding hurdles, looking for growth strategies, or seeking the perfect balance between profit and purpose, we've got you covered. Stay tuned and be a part of a movement that's setting new benchmarks in how we think about progress, community, and doing. Let's innovate, impact, and inspire. All right, so I'm Felicia. I am leading the show, and we created this magazine initially to help our clients throughout the holiday season. As a business owner, I like my holidays. I come from higher ed, and we would usually have the entire month of December off. And so I've carried that over into my brand. And so I wanted my business owners to have a tool to use while we were on break. And then it evolved into this incredible magazine. And we are just building and growing. So thank you again for being with us today.
I love that. Thank you for having me.
Of course, of course. So Jade, we're going to start with your journey. You shared some stories about how you were propelled into this field. And as a creative, I completely understand how you have all of these many talents and you decide on one thing and, you may decide to do something else. So you journeyed from Pasadena to Fort Worth. And I would say that's a literal and a metaphorical journey, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, how would you say that your journey has shaped your experiences and the way that you approach your work?
I definitely think I've been a creative or a storyteller um, since I can remember. And what I loved about living in Southern California and Pasadena specifically was that it's just outside of LA. So it's still fast paced, but not as quick
Hmm.
and as fast as LA. And so I think coming from that city, that environment, definitely inspired me to move in a creative space or to find my place in the creative world.
Hmm.
And moving from Pasadena to Fort Worth was a culture shock.
Mm.
Very different
Hmm.
in Fort Worth.
Yeah.
And so they actually have a saying that they say here in Texas, and they say, "Don't California my Texas."
Mm.
So I was a little nervous
Yeah.
about relocating, and especially as a natural makeup artist, natural glam is trending now, but it
Hmm.
wasn't like that 8 years ago when I decided to start the business, and so I
Hmm.
didn't really know if I fit anywhere.
Hmm.
So when I moved, I was researching the area, and there weren't really many makeup artists that were doing what I do.
Hmm.
So I was a little bit nervous about that, but I believe that it was where God had called me to go, and so I went, and it's been amazing. I'm so glad that I came. I miss
Yeah.
home. There's
Yeah.
things that
Yeah.
I miss about home,
Hmm.
but definitely enjoy Fort Worth and the culture here. The people are much more down to earth. I've been able to connect with other Black business owners,
Hmm.
and I love that here.
Hmm.
It doesn't feel as competitive. It is competitive, but it
Hmm.
doesn't feel as competitive as LA. LA has that like grind,
Hmm.
let's go,
Hmm.
like
Hmm.
every man for himself type of vibe.
Hmm.
Um, whereas it's much more collaborative here,
Hmm.
um, and just much more like just it feels like family more.
Yeah, and we're going to talk a little bit about what it means to be collaborative and to build community as a brand, as a change maker. But you mentioned in your move, researching and feeling it out and determining what and how. As a creative myself, and working with other creatives and change makers, I know imposter syndrome rears its ugly head quite
Mm,
often.
mm, mhm.
so, so if you can share with us, how has syndrome shown up in your journey, and what have you been able to do to navigate that?
Well, it's something that I still battle with every single day.
Mhm,
I try to not create from that space or live from that space as much as I can.
mhm,
I know that it's unhealthy, but it's inevitable, I think, as an entrepreneur as well, and as a creative entrepreneur. Naturally, I work in a space where it's easy to get caught up in comparison.
mhm,
Um, it's easy to be labeled just makeup artist. Like a lot of people who are not in a creative space don't understand that there's subcategories to
mhm,
that.
mhm,
And so I think a lot of me feeling imposter syndrome came from me feeling like I should like be a certain type of makeup artist or have a certain type of following or um just essentially be different than I was.
mhm,
And I was like, maybe I have to be, for example, when I first got started, everybody I knew that did makeup was a Mac girl. So
mm,
they started out at Mac, they worked at Mac, they advanced and it was the thing. Like
right,
2016, like if you weren't wearing Mac, what are you doing?
right, right.
And, and so I've always thought I didn't know that you didn't, and in some states you didn't have to be licensed to be a makeup artist. So for a long time, I just kind of flew under the radar. I undercharged. I didn't. I lacked confidence in my skill and my ability, and I felt like I didn't belong in the space.
Mhm,
And it felt like um, I kept seeing a lot of things like on social media and blogs and things where they would say like, like Mac girls are artists and everybody, that's learning off YouTube is just, essentially wannabes. And
mhm.
I was like, I learned off of YouTube. Like I've never worked for Mac. So I
Yeah.
was like, okay, well, maybe I should go try to find a school to go to or something. But I was working full time. And at the time, I was a single mom when I started my business. And so I didn't have a whole lot of time on my hands. And I was also, before makeup artistry, I was pursuing a career in screenwriting and as a playwright.
Mhm,
And so I felt imposter syndrome in that. I felt like, like God had blessed me to be in these rooms and be connected to people and meet amazing people, have amazing opportunities. But
mhm,
I just felt like because I didn't finish college or because I didn't go to school for makeup artistry, um, that, like and I wasn't I didn't work at any counters. I didn't work at Ulta's or Sephora's or anything like that. So when I relocated to Texas, I applied to work. I was working for the court at Tarrant County. And um I didn't know that I was pregnant with my second daughter. So they let me go maybe about 3 days after my daughter was born.
mm.
And they told me, you've only been at the company 7 months, so you don't qualify for FMLA. So, long story short, we're going to fire you, but if you want to come back later, you can. And I was like, okay. She gave me,
Wow.
I can hear your baby cooing in the background. Congratulations, but you're fired. And
Oh,
so I was like, okay. So I was like, okay, well, I want to work. I love, working, but I felt like God was showing me something in that space that I've come to learn over and over. It's a lesson I have to keep learning. And that was that I'm not my identity is not associated with the type of work that I do or my
mhm,
job or things like that. But I
mhm,
know that at the time. So I
mhm,
felt like let me go apply. And I applied for Mac and I applied for Sephora and I applied for Ulta. And so I got two interviews that I did with Mac. And then a third interview was a live demo. So they set me up in the store. they gave me brushes. They told me I could use whatever products were out for like testers, and that I would have like 45 minutes or something to complete a full face. So my sister was pregnant. She wasn't available. And so I went with my brother's girlfriend. I had done her makeup maybe once before, but I wasn't as familiar with her face as my sister. So I knew I couldn't cheat. I had to actually pull out some skill. So I was a little bit nervous about it, but I was like, you know what, Jay, you got this. Like you'll be fine. And I was so nervous and I was so like anxious that I did a good job, but I know I didn't do my best work.
Mhm, mhm.
And so sure enough, I didn't get the position. And I took that so hard. And it didn't matter. I did get offered the position at Sephora and at Ulta. I declined them. Because at the end of the day, like I said, if you're not a MAC girl, what are you doing? So,
Ah,
I felt like I needed that to validate me as a makeup artist. And, the ways that I've been blessed in my own business, that was maybe about 3 years ago. And to see where I am now versus back then, it's crazy. And I know I couldn't have achieved that if I was working for MAC.
right, right. Oh, so what year did you found and start your business?
I started in 2016, and then
Okay,
I registered it in April of 2023.
okay. So we've got some influences, outside influences. We've got some outside noise. We've got some internal noise based on personal experiences. We've got now this interview process, and then you got the two, but it was that one that you were shooting for. So tell us a little bit about like what transformed in you to say, I'm going to form this, and this is going to be my brand, and this is what I'm doing now.
I wholeheartedly believe that it was something that I didn't even realize that I was called to do.
Mhm.
And once I realized that, and that it wasn't like this I don't have like a beautiful epiphany moment that happened. I think it was more or less like me just kind of realizing and over time. And I saw that was reflected in what my clients would say and how my
Mm,
clients would feel. And recently, a friend of mine, I do her makeup and her daughter's makeup, and she asked me to come and do a photo shoot. And she said, um, when you came and you glam my daughter, like, I don't think you realize what it is that you do for these young women and their confidence. And I just sat there and was like, and I think moments like that, she's not the first to say something like that.
mhm,
Um, and I listen when people talk, and I take each client appointment as an opportunity to share something. If even if it's not me directly talking about my faith or God or Jesus or something, it's an opportunity for me to make them feel confident, to make them feel empowered, to make them feel beautiful.
mhm,
And like I'm meeting these women in a very insecure and very vulnerable state.
mhm,
Um, a lot of us have insecurities about the way that we look,
mhm,
and so um, when I realized the importance of enhancing natural beauty instead of transforming the person into somebody completely different, I think that was the moment that I knew, like, this is what you're supposed to be doing, girl. Like,
mhm.
you
Yeah,
know,
yeah. Like, this is it, this is it.
yeah,
And, so how did that affect or did it affect you creating the name for your business? Jade
it did.
Paints.
It did. It
Yeah.
absolutely did. I definitely was inspired by. I learned or researched a technique called underpaint.
Mhm,
And when I was looking through it and seeing how an artist would use, um, they would like create this beautiful like work of art, and then they would build on top of that and build layers. And the more that they did that, the more amazing the final product would be. And I originally went with that, but it was already the name of a cosmetic company, I believe.
mhm,
And so I was like, okay. And so I said, well, I'm literally painting. So I said I could put my name and, call it Jade Paints because that's what I'm literally doing.
Mhm.
And people always ask me, like, "Oh, how do you get your name?" And I share that my mother chose the name, and she essentially looked at the color of my eyes when I was born, and that's what made her choose. And so my mother's no longer with us, and so I try to do everything I can to pay homage to her.
I love that. I love that. And my condolences for your loss. I was reading how you mentioned how her loss um, shifted you. And as I can not imagine how much so, but what do you think that is the one thing that you have taken from that experience and how you serve and share today?
I think with you saying that, using the language that you did is right on point because that's exactly how I see it is service, not so much in a literal sense, but like obviously I'm a service based provider, but um, I think there's a lot of people that confuse what that really means,
Mhm.
and what is my goal first is to make people feel good but deliver excellent customer service to I have from in my corporate experience I've worked in customer service roles, and I think what I learned and I feel like that's preparation for where I am now. It was all preparation for where I am now, to first learn how to treat people.
Mhm.
And I think that's at my core. Like, I did a wedding recently, and the bride had 13, 12 bridesmaids. We did 13 people total. And um, I hired my team, and there was an incident where one of my teammates did makeup for a lady that was deeper complected, and the foundation, like the skin tone, didn't match. So the bride politely came and asked me, like, "Can you fix it? Like, can you do it?"
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And and so we did. I cleared the makeup and we did it again. It was for the mother of the bride, and so um as they did like a quick run through before the ceremony and before the guests had started to arrive. And so I went up and I was like touching up in between shots. The photographer was taking shots, and in between shots, I was running up and like touching up some of the ladies. And there were some ladies um she actually had 14 bridesmaids. So there's two that did not receive service from us. And there was one that she did her own makeup, but I still was touching up her makeup. And the lady that was standing next to her was like, I just want to tell you something. And she was like, makeup artists don't usually do this. And she was like, so what you're doing? She was like, I just want to let you know, like, that's rare. And I was like, like I said, touching up like some lipstick or like patting away some oil didn't
Mhm.
take like much, but she was essentially like talking about the service part of it and being willing to go above and beyond, even for people who weren't, being serviced by my company. And
Right,
I'm like, it didn't even cross my mind as a thought because I'm like, this is what you're supposed to do. Like,
right.
you serve where you can and you use your gifts and your talents. And that's always been my prayer is that God allow me to use my gifts and my talents to serve others and to represent them well. I'm glad I get to do it.
You have a very sound value system, it sounds like, and it appears to reach others. And I even love how you shared that you go by what people are telling you because these are not things that as creatives, as business owners, we have our blind spots, right? And so it's like a blind spot, but then it also reaffirms and confirms what God has already shared with you. And it's like, okay, thank you. I'm on the right path, right?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Um,
Mhm.
so you mentioned, and I guess it would be ironic that you shared that because your brand really is there to serve this gap that's been in the industry. I was a Mac girly, right? Um, I had
Yes.
my artist who did all my things, all my events, everything 8 years straight before I transitioned into some different options. But um, I don't know that, those who are going to read this and aren't a part of the Black or Brown community, um, I don't know that they truly get it matching our complexions, or if our neck is darker than our face, and what does that mean for us? What is the lighting? I'm going to get studio makeup versus outdoor makeup. Like, what? Share with us how important that is for all women.
Yeah. Extremely. Extremely. 'Cause I like that you said all women, because it's not just um, women of color. It's more or less like there's a lot of ageism in the beauty industry. And
Mhm.
I don't like that. I don't like that. I
Right.
feel like, I met a mature client that she had she was going to like a fundraising gala
Hmm.
in Dallas. And I could tell that this lady is about her business, like she don't play around.
Right.
And
Right.
she looked like she was maybe in her late 80s.
Hmm.
So when she came to the door to open the door, I sometimes freelance for a company called Glam, and it's like on demand services. And so I work with them as an independent contractor for sometimes when business is slow. So the way that Glam works, though, is that they connect us with the client. So we have no idea what we'll be doing, the skin type, skin tone, anything like that
Hmm.
before we get the client's name and address. That's it. So when she came to the door, I was like, she doesn't seem like a type of person that normally wears makeup. So I was planning to give her like the full, like, grandma soft glam esque, a
Hmm.
beat. Like, I already had in my mind what I thought I was going to do and what I wanted. And baby, when she said, um, "Oh, I usually wear charcoal on my eyes, like a smoky eye," and I was like, "Charcoal, like the color charcoal?" And she was like, "Yeah," and I was like, "Okay." And we're talking about like very fair skin, like
Hmm.
gray hair, very gray, like
Hmm.
maybe blonde at one point. So now it's like a very bright gray hair, and I was like, "Okay." Um, Okay. And she was like, "Yeah, and I have like a red lipstick that I use." And she was like, by Chanel, and I'm gonna go grab it and we'll do that. So I was like, she want a smoky eye, a
and a
charcoal smoky eye,
and a
and a
red
red
lip.
lip, and a red lip. So whatever I thought I was gonna do, that was. And so honestly, I was a little taken back. It's my first time that anybody had asked me that, any of my mature clients.
Hmm.
And what's more is that she told me that she didn't want to look pasty. She said she didn't want to look like she's headed to her funeral, more or
Hmm.
less want to be glam. And
Right.
so I said, okay. So I knew that she wanted less coverage and that she wanted to like her base to be more like soft and more natural, but that she still wanted a soft smoke on her eye and that red
Mhm.
lip.
Right.
And she told me like, "Oh, I wear liner, like in her waterline." I was like, oh, "Okay, you want the full, like, okay."
Let's
And
go.
so you're right. And so I said, "Okay, if you like it, I love it, and we're gonna execute it." And when she looked in the mirror and she told me like, "Wow," I think when she at the beginning, if I'm just being 100% honest, I think when I showed up, she kind of gave me a look like, and I don't know if she thought that I would be capable to pull it off.
Mhm.
And it's unfortunate, but there is a gap, and there is people do have those mm, I'll say like those stereotypes that they feel like people fit into. And I believe that sometimes if I show up in a room and I'm the only person of color, they're not sure. They're like, hmm. And I believe, this is just my opinion, but I believe that as a woman of color and as a makeup artist, I feel like we naturally have to be diverse. It's expected of us to serve a diverse clientele, whereas our counterparts, non-Black counterparts, don't necessarily have to.
Right.
And I think that it's important. I don't want to say, let me give this for context. I recently did a cover girl event,
Mm-hmm.
and that was awesome. But when I looked at who I was going to be working with, I saw a very clear thing. And it was that this was also something that Glam Squad connected me with.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw that it was me. There was another makeup artist that was white. There was another makeup artist that was Asian. And there was a makeup artist that was Hispanic, Latino.
Mm-hmm.
So I told my husband, like, I think I'm the diversity pig. You know?
Right.
I definitely think, they wanted to make sure that it was, that it was a balance, and
Mm-hmm.
that they had a variety of
Mm-hmm.
makeup artists who could service, just in case, let's make sure we could get someone for every demographic.
Right. Right.
And so I told him, I said, that though that might be the case, I'm taking it as a blessing that I was connected with the people that I got to connect with. And I'm not gonna lie, it was an influencer event in Dallas,
Okay.
and I knew when I turned my back and I saw like a little line of Black women, like the
Mm-hmm.
Black influencers were kind of lining up to come to me.
To you.
And, yeah. And I take pride in that. I take part in that. And I think it should totally, I don't think it should, that we should only be chosen for those opportunities, but
Right.
I do find it to be a blessing that I'm able to service anybody that sits in my chair. And I'm very proud of that,
Yeah.
because we should have representation matters. And that's trendy. A lot of people say it, but it does.
Right.
And it should never be a space where Black or brown women or people um, go to receive a service, and they're either turned away or they just get subpar service
Right.
because, a lack of knowledge and skill.
Right. Right. Um, Creativity and community collaboration, I'm sure plays a huge role in how you serve and what you do and how you're leading. What would you say um, the role creativity plays in you driving the change that you're talking about and the perception that people have?
I think it takes doing something a little different. I think, like, there's like a social norm,
Hmm.
and there's a beauty standard. And I think that there's so many brands and so many companies that are trying to change that narrative. But, it's definitely been something that's been around for, it's a tale that's old as time. And it's more or less like fair skin is, the beauty standard. That's it. You want to, or as a makeup artist, a strange thing that I've seen is makeup artists that are also people of color not showcasing diversity, more
Hmm.
or less like purposely showcasing, fairer skin.
Hmm.
And that's even for like Black women. I rarely see some of these main, like, or popular makeup artists showcase a portfolio that has women who have skin tones much darker than myself.
Right.
And I also feel like I've been in a space where um, deeper complected clients, or um, yeah, I would say deeper complected clients, have approached my appointments with a little bit of mistrust, and they're skeptical because
Hmm.
they're just not sure. Like, can you do people that's darker than you? Like, just call
Right.
it like it is.
Right.
And I I took that challenge on from the very beginning. When one of my cousins was deep skinned, and she had a wedding, but she had her sisters in it. Her sisters vary in shades. And then also she had some adoptive siblings. And so um, it was a multicultural bridal party. That was my very first bridal party. And even my own family, I'm talking about my own family, was just kind of unsure, like because of the experiences that they've had.
Right.
And and I think as makeup artists and as creatives, it takes stepping out takes us stepping outside of the box a little bit in
Mm.
order to get what we need to get. And I think what I like to do that's different, a lot of makeup artists don't necessarily consult with the client. Listen to them. They know.
Right.
They
Right.
know their face much better than you.
Yeah.
And I think that there's a lot of ego that's in that. Like, oh, I'm
Mhm.
the makeup artist, I'm the expert. So, I'm gonna do and just like I said with that older woman, I thought I knew what to do and what, I thought was appropriate
Right.
for her age and her skin tone.
Right.
And when she told me something, I think it pushed me as an artist because I had never done a smoky eye and red lip on a fair skinned mature client.
Mhm.
And, and I thank God for that because it made me, it let me know, like, first of all, that you can do it.
Right.
Because deep down, I was like, oh no, if I could pull off what she's asking me,
Right.
and,
Right.
but I think that it's very important to take some chances and to listen and to
Yeah.
diversify portfolios. Like, I'm intentional about reaching out to Indian brides
Mm.
or Nigerian brides, or I had a Pacific Islander bride that was whose family was from Guam. I had
Mm.
never met anyone from Guam, but it was so cool, and she was so beautiful, and her mother and her sister had different like skin tones, but
Mhm.
like obviously they're related, so they looked alike, but different. And I just I love that. I
Yeah.
love that. But I definitely think it calls for us to push ourselves so that we can expand our artistry.
Right. Right. Agreed. Agreed wholeheartedly. You are not just serving and leading your team and serving your clients while they're in the chair, but you've also created some tools to share with others. Tell us about your ebook.
Yeah, I would love to. So it is 10 practical steps. Is not, nothing too crazy, but 10 practical steps that really any service-based provider or beauty professional can follow.
Hmm.
And that's just to level up in your business.
Hmm.
There's so much that I learned on this journey when I first started out. As a self-taught makeup artist, you literally teach yourself. It's literally self-explanatory. You teach yourself everything. And I learned a lot of the stuff that I learned after I had already made mistakes, you
Right.
know?
Right.
So definitely learned it the hard way. And there was no one to guide me. I didn't come from a family that really promoted entrepreneurship.
Mm.
Like, my dad was a janitor and then he became a custodial supervisor. He worked at that job as long as I had been alive at that point. He retired maybe about 2 years ago.
Hmm.
And so he had spent 36 years working for a school district, and that was all I saw him do.
Yeah.
And when my mother was living, she was a nurse, and then
Hmm.
she started working for a bank, and
Hmm.
then she had diabetes, and it her health started to decline more and more. Kidneys have started to fail, so she was on dialysis. So the bank that she was working at told her she was not employable anymore. She had to take off. And so my dad was the sole breadwinner. And when I saw that transition happen, I saw us going from eating name brands to off brand. I saw us, um, my mom would make a meal that she would just kind of throw like ground beef and corn and rice together in a pot. And when we asked her what it was, she said goulash. I didn't know that goulash was a real dish in another
Uh-huh.
country. Like, I thought that it was the name that she made up, but
Yeah. Yeah.
I saw us our lifestyle change, and that was essentially because the workforce had failed my mother, in my opinion. Like, instead of working with her. We have a lot of laws and stuff in place now that maybe things might be a little different. But
Mhm.
in the 90s, the late 90s, that wasn't a thing. And my mother
Right.
ended up had to stop working. And it even our house caught on fire. We ended up moving out of Pasadena. It was a lot going on.
Yeah.
And I say all that to say, or the purpose of all that is that um, it was just unreliable.
Mhm.
And I saw that early on, and I knew like I don't know if this is it. I can't.
Right.
I'm not sure if I could rely on a job
Right.
all that time, and so I
Mhm.
need to find something different. I do something different, and
Mhm.
so me starting a business was so much more than me just deciding, hey, today I want to be a makeup artist. And so I want to share that knowledge. I There's things that I know that I experienced that you're not gonna find, on TikTok. You're not
Right.
gonna, there's things that I believe is you learn trial and error.
Right.
And so what I did was break that up into, I think I had an advantage of being a writer, writing experience with writing blogs and screenplays and teleplays and stage plays and stuff. And even though most of those are creative writing, I learned the skill
Yeah.
long, long ago.
Yeah.
And so I put that into practice and I was like, okay. And I'm a list girl. Like I like, to always create lists. So I think I speak in lists.
Mhm.
Um, but that's essentially what it is. It's just giving steps on how to start your business, how to grow your business, how to establish your business. Because, like I told you, I started makeup artistry in 2016, but I didn't register my business until 2023.
Mhm.
That whole gap, that's just a whole gap of like ignorance, like not knowing,
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
and learning. So I'm sharing all of that on how, like, just breaking it down into bite-sized chunks so that uh people don't have to suffer what I suffered through.
Right. I love your heart um of service and of compassion. It comes through your storytelling, it comes through your words. I think that for some people, even if they don't have the, trained skill set in storytelling, that there are natural born storytellers. And I think you're one of them, my friend.
Thank you.
But it's captivating to hear, and I want to ask more questions. But we're gonna have to move on. But I love connecting with people, Jade, and I love hearing just what Sometimes people don't think like I'm a first generation wealth builder or I'm a first generation et cetera, et cetera. Usually you hear that from an immigrant or people who've immigrated to here, but you are a first generation wealth builder. And thankfully, you had loving parents who planted some seeds in you. And then you were like, I'm going to change. And despite the challenges, the deep loss, the deep grief, you still soften your heart, excuse me, and followed the way that God was leading you.
Yeah.
So I say, oh my goodness, the obedience required there, the courage, and the love even that just comes through. So I can only imagine what your clients feel when they're sitting in your chair.
Mhm.
But I love your brand. I love what it stands for. I love that. I can tell a little bit about people when they do their submission, and it's like, all right, if I get that hunch, I'm really involved in this process, as you can see. But
Yeah,
if I get that
I love
hunch,
that.
I'm like, yeah, I want to sit down and I want to share this story. I want to share this person's journey and I want to share how they are changing the world. I mean, and some people don't think about it, but a makeup artist, like some women only think that they can get beautiful when there's a special occasion. Some of them only think that that it's going to require 12 layers of glam to make them. But I love that you and your differentiation are naturally glam, right? Like,
Yeah.
I absolutely love that. So I just want to thank you for taking the time out to share today. And I can't wait.
Yeah.
Can't wait to share this. And I can't wait for people to experience you and all that you are bringing into the world.
Oh, it's my absolute pleasure. I'm so grateful. Thank you.
You're
Thank you for
welcome.
taking the time.
Of course. Of course. Do you have any questions for me?
Um, I would like to know what inspired you to get into podcasting?
So, um, I sung background vocals a very long time ago, and I retired from singing. I still sing, I just don't sing professionally.
Okay.
But as a creative, I've done all kinds of things.
Mm.
I worked in foster care with foster youth. I've taught in higher education. Um, I've had I've changed my business name 3 times because I changed my mind about how I wanted to serve people. So
Yeah.
I've been an event designer, I've hosted retreats, I've coached business owners, and the way that the world is changing, I don't usually sit down and like watch videos, but I know that my clients have time to listen, right? They can listen while they're walking, they can listen while they're working out, they can listen while they're driving, commuting to work. And I wanted to be able to still serve.
Yeah.
My director of marketing sometimes fusses at me because she's like, "You're giving too much away." And I'm like, "There's no such thing. I'm a creative."
Yeah.
I'm a creative. So I
That's
have
how it
to
works.
give, I give. People don't even have to pay me. Well, I would still love for them to pay me, but
Yeah.
they don't have to pay us to work with us because if they listen to the podcast every week, they're gonna learn some stuff and be able to
Yeah.
take it away and implement it into their business and
Yeah.
go forth. So the magazine was here's a tool to help you while I'm on break, so you're not panicking and I'm not stressed. And then the
Mm.
podcast was you need some in between Felicia time, and so that's that. But I was not going to be a Jonah. God shared,
Mm.
laid it on my heart to produce an award,
Mhm.
uh, which I'll very briefly. It was going to be the Changemaker Icon Iconic Awards, but someone else being CBS,
Oh,
started the same thing like maybe 2 weeks later. So I had filed my they had already filed for their trademark and I
mm.
filed for my trademark like 2 weeks later. Had no idea, but I
Yeah.
changed the name of the awards and so the magazine and the podcast are going to lead up to this recognizing change maker brands for the impact that they're having on real people. Um,
Mm.
and so that was it, because I told God, I'm not going to be Jonah sitting in a whale, so
Yeah.
let me move.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah. So that's how we got here.
I love that. I love
Mhm.
that. I love what you're doing. And if there's anything I could do to help or contribute in any way, please let me know. I would love to stay in touch. I
Of course.
love this. I'm very inspired by what you're doing.
You. Thank you
Mm.
so much. Well, I'm going to take you up on that. I promise. I will.
Uh, and I
I
hope you do. And
I will.
do.
I will. I will follow up with you. I surely will. I do interviews on Thursdays,
Mhm.
and then during the week, it's all the other stuff. But we also have National Black Girl Month as a part of our brand, so we're planning for National Black Girl Month 2025 in April. But yeah, we're revamping our website right now, all the things, and we're gonna hit the world by storm and say,
Yeah.
here we are.
Yes.
Here we
Yes.
are.
Love
Here
that.
we are. Thank
Love
you
that.
so much, Jade. You're gonna be one of my favorite people in the world.
Oh,
Yeah, I have family in Texas. I haven't visited them yet, but now I'm gonna be like, Jade, I'm in town.
yes. Please. Please.
I will. I will.
I love it.
Thank you.
No, thank you. My pleasure.
Hey, Changemaker, real quick before you go, if today's episode helped you in some way, the best way to thank me is to head over to Apple Podcasts, subscribe to the channel, and leave a review. I'd also love to connect with you over on social. You can find me at Friends Call Me Fee. Until next time, keep changing the game.